obviously the chair of the Winnebago County Democratic Party. I am so excited that you are all here. Can you feel the energy in this room? Exactly. You all care about, you're all people who care. You care about democracy, our country, about our future. But we have only 5 days left to show how much we actually care. Elections in Wisconsin, as we all know, have come down to 3 votes, sometimes 2, per ward. The things we do over the next 5 days will make the difference between winning or losing. So, if there has never been a moment with so much at stake, it is now. Donald Trump, if he wins this election, his second term will be so much more dangerous than the first. His Project 2025 agenda would threaten our fundamental freedoms, give him unprecedented and unchecked power to do whatever he wants. I wanted to swear in there, but I'm not going to. So, how do we prevent this? That's exactly right. Electing Vice President Harris, Governor Tim Walz, and Democrats up and down the ballot. They are all fighting to turn the page on Donald Trump's campaign of divisiveness and chaos. We are going to win by talking to every voter we can get to get them off the couch into the polls, which is why we need everybody's help to knock on doors, make phone calls, and as Coach Waltz says, leave it all on the field. All right, now, I'm going to tell one thing. They wanted me to say, I want everybody in this room to take out your phones and go to myvote.wisdems.org. Pardon me, let me start again. Go to vote.wisdems.org. That's where you can sign up to go to Fond du Lac, to come here, to go to Appleton to help. We also want you to make a plan to vote. If you can, if you haven't voted already, and you're from Oshkosh, it's just up the road. We want you all to go there. It would be wonderful if you could do that. Also, this is not just a meet and greet. This is also to get people to help us knock doors. There are people that have clipboards. If you want to sign up for a shift, if you've never knocked doors before, these are the easiest ones to do because we're telling the people that are going to vote for us, go vote for us. All right, so let's do this. Let's vote early, let's volunteer, and let's bring it home. And now it is my honor to introduce someone who, like Vice President Harris, has worked for peace and justice around the world, former President Bill Clinton.
Oshkosh, Winnebago County, I'm glad to be here. You know, when Hillary and I endorsed Kamala Harris, and she said, well, I want you to help in the campaign. I said, well, don't send me to all those heavily televised big rallies. I said, if you want me to help, send me where I'm most comfortable. Send me to the small towns. Send me to the middle-sized towns. Send me to places where national politics is often ignored. And I'm just ecstatic to be here. I want to thank Marcia for the introduction and for being a stalwart for so long, always there, in good times and bad. And Representative Warwick Palmieri and candidate for the Assembly, Kyle Keogh, thank you. And I want to say a word about your senator who's in a brisk race with a billionaire. I think Tammy Baldwin has been an extraordinary United States Senator and needs to be sent back. Now, I want to say something else. I'm not running for anything except my grandchildren's future. And I don't want you to feel any pressure, but you might decide my grandchildren's future. In the Senate race, where we're battling amazing, no one thought we had a remote chance to hold the Senate a year ago or 6 months ago, but we actually have a chance now. But it depends on the turnout. Everything depends on the turnout. Everything depends on whether people understand what's at issue. So very quickly, I will say, in summary, because I hope you're not done contacting voters, you should tell people they ought to vote for Kamala Harris for the following reasons.
100%.
Her economic plan is way better. They say, I'll come back to that. Our education plan is way better. They probably will try to eliminate the problem of education. Her health care plan is light years better. Just yesterday, the would-be future speaker and the current speaker, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, said, we're going to really overhaul health care if you make us president. And I'll tell you what he means by that. They're going to get rid of the $35 monthly limit on insulin. And it's a huge problem in America, type 1 and type 2 diabetes and all the consequences that flow from it. They're going to get rid of the $2,000 out-of-pocket limit for people on Medicare. Kamala Harris says, I will not get rid of it, and I will extend it to people who need it, who are younger than Medicare eligibility. It ought to be available for everybody. And it's interesting, one of the Democratic candidates that I've tried to help, and one of my favorites, is running in the district with the largest Vietnamese population in America in Southern California, and they never had a Vietnamese congressman. And, you know, he survived a difficult childhood. He joined the military. He then went to college and law school. And when he was elected to the state senate, he got out of that and tried to help his wife run their family pharmacy. And I've never talked to a family pharmacist in America who did not favor the cap on insulin, the cap on out-of-pocket costs, who does not understand clearly that we are the only country in the world, including countries with very successful pharmaceutical companies, that does not impose limits on life-saving medicine for ordinary citizens. Everybody else in the world does it, and they're campaigning on getting rid of what's been done. So that's one reason. Secondly, Trump's essential argument, he's the best I ever saw at claiming credit for when the sun comes up in the morning. He thinks I should have thanked him for this beautiful day when I got up. He said, look how great it was when I was president. With all these jobs and no inflation. Therefore, you have to vote for me. Here's the problem with that. In President Obama's last 3 years, the economy produced more than 8 million jobs. In his first 3 years, which followed it, and before COVID hurt him, he got the tail end of Obama's recovery, and we had a little over 6 million jobs. Now, arithmetic ought to count for something. In other words, he gave all those tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires and big corporations, and the big companies put 85% of their money into buying back stock and raising top managers' salaries. It's a myth, what he's saying. But I know, because I lived through it once, Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 years before people believe or feel a change that's well underway. This is a bum rap. It's not fair. And it's important that you point that out. Because look at what he wants to do now. Look at what she wants to do. She says groceries are still too high. We're not a price-fixing company. We have a free market. But the grocery business is highly concentrated in about 5 big companies, so the difference in 2 and 3% profit is enormous. We have price-fixing laws, basically called price gouging laws, in 37 of our 50 states, red and blue. But we don't have a federal one. I'll give you one so they will know that we have jurisdiction to see when excessive profits are being charged and coming right out of the hides of working families and their desire to feed their children. Yeah. And I think this is important. There's a housing crisis in this country. It costs too much to rent and it's impossible for young people to buy. Why did that happen? It happened because after the first crash in 2008, all these places were empty. Then after COVID, even more places were empty. And big financial institutions swooped in, smart move for them, and bought all these empty buildings for next to nothing. And now that we're growing like crazy again, they want to charge people an arm and a leg. So that there are huge numbers of young people for whom owning a home seems like an impossible dream. Kamala Harris is the only candidate who has said, if you vote for me, I'll do something to bring the prices down. Number one, we will immediately get to work building 3 million more housing units, and that will spark more in the private sector. And for the first time, we will actually help people on limited incomes pay their down payment, up to $25,000, and help their down payment. And she says, we finally are producing more energy than we use because of our all of the above things. She said, I don't think coal has much of a future, and I think that oil is important for other reasons that don't necessarily pollute the economy. But we ought to keep going with electric cars. We ought to keep going with solar energy and wind energy and geothermal. And that's a huge part of our economy now. Western Pennsylvania used to be coal country. Now there are more people working in clean energy than in all the carbon producing energy combined. So we need to keep doing this, and gas will keep going down. You probably noticed it's dropped in the last couple of months. It's about the only thing that changes, and we notice it immediately. Trump says to the oil industry, in public and not denied, you owe me $1 billion. Because if you vote for me, I'll get rid of everything the Biden-Harris administration did. And we'll have to live on coal and oil and natural gas. And don't you think for a minute that he will be vigilant about how that gas is brought up and whether the pipelines are safe and the connections don't leak. It's not close. Her plan is not only better for the economy, it's better for the environment, and we ought to stay with it. So she's got a better economic policy. The other thing I think is interesting, when I was down in rural Georgia, in rural North Carolina, and as you might imagine, I met a lot of Trump supporters as well as Harris supporters. And one guy with a MAGA cap came up and threw his arm around me and said, "You were the last good Democrat." And I said, "Why do you think that?" He said, "Because you balanced the budget 2 or 3 times." I said, "Well, why are you for Trump? He's going to blow up the deficit." His plan costs more than twice as much as hers does and will help fewer than half the people, hers will. So we are going to have to worry about keeping interest rates down and not letting the debt get out of hand and slowly bringing it down. But you can't do it overnight. And we've been through 2 shocks to our system in the last 16 years. And it was tough on us. But his idea of him putting a 20% tariff on everything amounts to a tax on every one of you. Tariffs only work if they're on for a while we start something new, like the CHIPS bill, or the parts of the infrastructure bill that relate to our national security, including bringing affordable broadband to every rural community in America. But if you put them on everything and there's nothing to replace them, the people selling stuff to us will just add the 20%. And a recent totally non-political economic survey estimated that it would raise the price of everything you buy by about 16%, and you'd wind up paying up to $4,000 a year more for just basic stuff. It's terrible economics, but it fits with blaming the farmers on everything. Everything is, if everything is a responsibility of somebody who wants to immigrate here or somebody who wants to live where they are. Everybody's not American is a bad person in his theory. You will pay the bill. So I don't think we ought to wreck the healthcare system and get rid of the protections for people with pre-existing conditions. They already lost to Congress over that in 2018, you remember? But that's when John McCain stood alone among all the Republicans and said no. And this brings me to maybe the most important thing. Trump has done everything he could to destroy every guardrail that exists in American democracy, so that the real test is whether, as that old punchline from A Zillion Bad Jokes, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? He only wants to hire people that says, you, master, whatever you say. Poor old J.D. Vance may have a degree from Yale.
Weird.
But it is weird, but the thing that you should be worried about is he did have one last smidgen of self-respect when he refused to say that Trump actually did lose the election in 2020. So last week, in the middle of all this, that so much has happened and maybe not many people noticed, he knelt down and said, oh no, 2020 was a fraud and Trump didn't win. Now, look, when you're president, you're making decisions all the time, and the people that really care about you are always telling you about the other side of it. When I was elected, I had a lot of wonderful young people helping me. And I brought them into the Oval Office the first week I was there, and I said to them, if you ever come in this room and tell me something because you think that's what I want to hear, I might as well clear out and let a computer make the decisions. You hire people to tell you they respectfully disagree, or at least you have to consider this, that, or the other thing. That's what they're supposed to do. And thank God when Trump was president the first time, he had military leaders and others who tried to say, these are terrible ideas. He has made it clear that none of those people are going to be back. Half of his cabinet won't endorse him. 100+ prominent Republicans won't. A lot of them are campaigning for Kamala Harris. And I've met a lot of them on the stump. And they're proud of doing it because They know nobody's right all the time, and a broken clock's right twice a day, and every last one of us is fated to spend our fleeting lives trying to get as far away from being right twice a day and as close to being right all the time as possible, and we know we're never going to be right all the time. That's what those people who swear an oath to the Constitution when they come to work for the President of the United States pledge to do. And this is a really big deal, folks. This is not some passing thing. And he may have the next president, and one reason I pray it will be Kamala Harris, the next president may have 2 more appointments to the Supreme Court. Now, we've already got the most right-wing court in 100 years. And completely ideological. But if she gets 2 more appointments, it could be in balance at least. If he gets 2 more appointments, they'll be the most right-wing court for 30 or 40 years, maybe longer. So that's my pitch. You cannot. And look, I'm not saying there are not going to be any problems. I read today the lead story in USA Today is record amounts of autism among young Americans. When Hillary ran for president the first time, in 2008, she had started the Autism Caucus in Congress and was the first person ever to run for national office with a platform for autism. This has never happened to me before or since. I did 300 small meetings like this. And I was 300 for 300. There was not a single solitary group I met with where somebody didn't say, this affects my family. I'm so glad somebody's trying to deal with it. This is a unifying issue. They don't ask you if you're a Republican or a Democrat if you have a child with a challenge. You want help to deal with it. And that's another reason I want Kamala Harris to be president. I'm telling you, the country cannot afford to take a chance on someone who thinks that America should be judged by whether the president of North Korea and Vladimir Putin like us. And I didn't say that. That's what he said. He said, well, when I was president, they thought the world of us, all over the world, like the president of North Korea and Vladimir Putin, while he's strangling the life out of Ukraine. So you got to think about all this. It's simple and straightforward, and you need to talk to people about it. It is not too late to pick up votes. It is not too late to convince people who think they shouldn't vote that they should. And the last thing I'll say about this, Kamala Harris has promised us that if you don't think she's doing a good job, you can vote against her next time. Donald Trump had a conversation which has been widely publicized, verbatim, in his voice, where he tells a very conservative group of Christians, if you want to make America great again, you've got to get out and vote for me. But you only have to do it one more time. His words. Because if you do it, by the next election, we'll have it rigged, so you'll never have to vote again. Now, people say, oh, he doesn't mean that. Yeah, he didn't mean he was going to take the pre-existing conditions away. He didn't mean he was going to give us the most right-wing Supreme Court in 100 years. He didn't mean he was going to get rid of Roe v. Wade and let the states do whatever they wanted. Look, this is really a big deal. And I want my 10-year-old granddaughter to grow up with the rights that her mother had and the opportunities that her mother had. And I want my 2 little grandsons, who are 5 and 8, whose family motto is they should be kind and be brave, to feel that that kind of life will be rewarded, at least accepted. And it's all about tribalism. This is the last thing I want you to remember, because I'm one of the few people in this election who knows a little something about the job and knows both candidates, and I have for years. And I had a cordial relationship with Donald Trump when he was focused on developing golf courses, something he's quite good at. And I can tell you it is not close. It is not close. I know the race is going to be close because a lot of people have bought Trump's argument about how great the economy was and cost of living. But a lot of them have bought his argument about dominance too. It's time for our crowd to dominate. And so I want to be in a country where everybody has a chance. Everybody has a chance to ride. So, look, we're in the middle of, or near the end of the college football season. We just finished the World Series last night. The pros are doing what they're doing. And there's a lot of us that are sports nuts. Why? Because you value courage, bravery, and effectiveness in a game where you think it's not rigged. And every now and then a referee or an umpire will make a mistake. Now they even have replays in baseball. And they've done everything they could to eliminate error. Why? Because we think it's really important that we all live under the same set of rules. And yet, Donald Trump is running for president saying, you're better than everybody else and we should not live under the same set of rules. Let me rig it for you. And I'm telling you, it's a recipe for disaster. It'll cost your money. It'll hurt your kids' future. It's not good for you. And I know Kamala Harris. Hillary's known her for 30 years. But she is smart enough to be president. She is strong enough to be president. And she learns with remarkable speed. And she listens to people who don't agree with her. I want somebody who will bring everybody in and listen to them, including people who don't agree with me on things. Nobody is right all the time. So he's got a whole policy to make all of us kneel to whatever occurs to him every day. And that's why 2 4-star generals who work for him say he shouldn't be anywhere near the White House. That's why 2 of his secretaries of defense say he shouldn't be anywhere near the White House. It may all come down to you. Don't feel any pressure. But remember, that's what being an American is all about. Let me just say one last thing. Dwight Eisenhower is remembered by people who studied him in school, like me, as the president who warned us not to be carried away with the military-industrial complex. But he said something else. It took him a long time to get rid of Senator Joe McCarthy, who represented Wisconsin. And when he did, he said, I'm really worried, most of all, about whether America can maintain its democracy over the long run, because it requires discipline and thinking and talking to other people who aren't like you. And I hope we can keep it going, but it's going to be hard. That's what Eisenhower said. And I want you, and Wisconsin should appreciate this better than anybody. When Joe McCarthy's top aide, Roy Cohn, went home to New York, Roy Cohn was a fascinating man. He was Jewish and he was gay and he supported homophobic anti-Semites. And his first big client when he got home was Donald Trump's father. And he learned from Roy Cohn, never apologize, never admit anything, don't ever say you made a mistake, and always accuse other people of doing what you're doing. And you're getting bathed in it now. So I'm pleading with you, Wisconsin. Go out there and give it all you got for your grandkids and mine, for your children, and for the United States. We need you desperately. Bless you.